Most teams have dashboards full of numbers, but very few know which numbers actually move the needle. And even fewer know how to define the right KPIs in the first place. I've worked with early stage startups, PE backed roll ups, and public companies, and the ones who consistently grow, they all have one thing in common. Their KPIs are aligned to their business model and their stage. So today I'm going to show you exactly how to define KPIs that drive real performance and avoid the trap of tracking what looks good instead of what actually matters. The biggest mistakes teams make when defining KPIs is copying what they see in a blog post or investor update. But KPIs aren't universal. They should reflect your company's strategy, stage, and valuation goals. A venture-backed SaaS startup chasing Series B is going to care about revenue growth rate, net retention, and burn multiple. A mature PE-backed business, likely more focused on EBITDA, margin expansion, and operational leverage. The core idea is this: track what matters to your business model and your bottom line. But even more important and more actionable is figuring out what drives those metrics. Because knowing your top KPIs isn't enough if you don't know how to move them. Just because a high growth SaaS company tracks NRR doesn't mean you should. Your business has unique levers, so your KPIs should reflect that. One company's North Star might be daily active users, another's might be LTV to CAC ratio. Instead of copying someone else's dashboard, you should first ask yourself, what metrics actually tied to our core value prop? What numbers would investors or executives use to evaluate our performance? And what does success look like in this specific season of growth? That's where leadership has to step up. The executive team should define 5 to 6 primary KPIs that reflect business health, not just activity. These are the scoreboard metrics: revenue, margin, retention, burn rate, bookings, conversion rate, whatever maps directly to your business's long-term goals. But here's where most teams stop. They pick their KPIs and they think the job's done. It's not. Picking primary KPIs should just be the starting point. The real unlock is connecting those KPIs to metrics that can be improved through daily execution. That's where it gets fun. Once you've got your 6 primary KPIs, the next step is to identify 2 to 3 supporting metrics for each. These are the metrics that your team can actually control: the inputs, the habits, the levers. Let's bring this to life with a real world example. Earlier on in my career, I worked at UberEats, and one of the top line KPIs for the whole company was GMV, gross merchandise volume, the total dollar value of all food ordered on the platform. That's obviously a scoreboard metric. It reflects overall platform health and monetization potential, but it doesn't have to do anything with what I was doing in my job day to day or many of other people on staff were doing on a day to day basis. GMV is a lagging indicator. You can't just say, let's grow GMV and expect it to happen. You have to dig at least one level deeper, if not several levels deeper. So let's ask, what actually drives GMV? We might break it into 3 core drivers. We might break it into 3 core levers: GMV, and then our levers might be order volume. So we'll say volume. We'll say AOV, average order value. And we'll say order success rate. We called this CR percentage. Basically, reliability rate of the order. So if 100 orders are placed, how many of those 100 orders are actually filled and delivered to the customer? Those will all influence GMV. Now, for each of these, you can identify supporting metrics that your ops, marketing, and product teams can directly influence. So I won't break down all 3 of these supporting metrics, but let's take average order value, for example. So if we want to start to drive this down even further into some metrics that could be more actionable, we can break AOV into 3 supporting metrics. And so maybe we would say the ways that we can influence AOV could be something like upsell conversion. So like when you place an order in the restaurant menu, it says add this drink or the chips and salsa from Chipotle as you're getting close to checkout. Like what % of the time is that happening? Percent of users ordering premium. So there are lower cost restaurants, by nature on the platform, but trying to get a sense on what percent of your customers are actually ordering from those restaurants that are just naturally higher value. If you order a steak dinner, obviously you're going to drive up AOV relative to ordering from a McDonald's. Then another metric you can look at would be percent of orders with a bundle. So there's a lot of other ways that we could evaluate AOV, like certain things that you would do would segment AOV by location within a specific restaurant brand. Or you can bucket it by AOV by metro area. You could bucket AOV by delivery fee threshold, for example. You could bucket AOV by restaurant category. So there's a lot of ways that you could just start to gain insights about AOV. But the focus should be once you've segmented your AOV, then you can go down to that next level to find different ways that you can actually influence the AOV. So let's say that you've segmented AOV by metro region and you found that for whatever reason in Austin, AOV was starting to lag. And then you might look at other trends at a deeper level in Austin. So within the category mix, it happened to be that Mexican restaurants were seeing a lower AOV than normal. And that's what's causing you to start to miss your KPIs from an AOV perspective in Austin. So then you can take it to one level deeper and start to identify patterns in restaurants where that's happened. So that's all great to be able to do that diagnostic analysis. But at some point, you need to also be able to once you've been able to diagnose the problem, then you need to click into the metrics that are going to actually allow you to do something about the metric. So you have at least your 3 supporting metrics here, your upsell conversion, your percent of users ordering from premium restaurants, and your percent of orders that have a bundle. And now you can see that in the Mexican category within some particular restaurant chain in Austin, Texas, we realized that our upsell conversion rate has tanked. And so that's going to be the metric that we hone in on here. And that's where you can start to, if you implement like a weekly or monthly business review process, that can be the metric that you make your North Star. And then your teams can start to take tactical steps towards improving that number, which should, over a period of time, start to drive your AOV back up in the Mexican category in Austin. And so that's the approach that you would take, is have these higher level metrics that you can start to diagnose and see where change needs to happen, but then make sure that you're always building it down to metrics that you can actually influence the metrics that you care about. So, for example, if you wanted to increase your upsell conversion, maybe you would tweak like product positioning on the app screen. And once we've realized that we want to optimize upsell conversion rate, then we can start to meet as a team and talk about what are the things that we're going to do to actually influence that rate. And so this is something where you might have a dashboard or an automated report, but then you're taking that information to the next level, meeting as a team and talking about what you're going to do. And then you're reviewing those efforts on a weekly basis. So you can get this continual feedback loop, see if your actions are improving the metrics. And if not, maybe you start to course correct. But a couple of things that you could do to improve that upsell conversion rate would be to personalize suggestions for upsells. You could improve timing. So when the upsell message is actually shown, you could optimize your layout. So optimize visuals. So something as simple as making your images really sharp for when you want to upsell the chips and salsa or a drink. Like those are the types of things that you would start to tweak if you did this diagnostic effort and found that that's where you want to focus your efforts. So these are all things that your team can act on this week. That's the power of supporting metrics. They turn lofty KPIs into something tangible, something that teams can move. And when your dashboard reflects those daily levers, you can go from reactive to proactive. And that's when analytics can become a part of your culture. So the executive team is always going to be looking at those primary KPIs. And then the supporting KPIs beneath primary KPIs Might actually still be metrics that are not super actionable or tangible for teams to act on a weekly, daily basis. But if you start to go 1 to 2 levels deeper from that, you can start to use those higher level KPIs to identify trends in your business, and then use the deeper level KPIs to identify action plans to influence the supporting KPIs. If you want help defining your KPIs, we've built a free resource that walks you through this exact process, the KPI mapping template. It helps you align around 6 primary KPIs and then dig deep to find the supporting metrics that actually drive them. It's simple, it's clear, and it's how we start every analytics engagement. You can grab it below the video. And once you've mapped your KPIs, it's time to put them to work. That's where the next video comes in. Click on the screen to watch why most companies get zero ROI out of their data. It shows you exactly why most dashboards fail and how to create a rhythm that turns metrics into momentum. I'll see you there.